Okay, go. Take it away, Michaela.
Well, good morning, guys. It's Wednesday, right? I've been thinking it was Wednesday since Monday. We are here, Crystal and I are here with Andrew, the author of A Failed State. We're super excited that you're here with us this morning.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, so let's get into it. We're launching Honest Dad Talk today, and Andrew, you're kicking it off for us because you're a dad boss, an author. You have an interesting story, and we want to hear what it's like to, balance the kid thing while being a dad and an author and speaker and all the amazing things that you do. So I guess, first of all, just tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into the book.
Oh, wow. On the spot right away, huh? Obviously a father of three. I am primarily a father, a dad. I think on the side, I do a little consulting. And of course, I also write. So just trying to balance all that in lieu of no longer being deployed, no longer being downrange, and trying to manage everything from 8,000 miles away, mostly.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
So when do you have time to write with three kids? Because apparently I need to take some advice from you.
Well, it's the marketing that's harder than the writing, Crystal. It's, that's not my wheelhouse. So that's the part that I find a lot more difficult than just sitting down and writing out your thoughts.
We find that the things that are not in our wheelhouse, we have to outsource. Those are the lessons that we've learned over the last couple of years is
delegate.
Yeah.
Delegate.
Yes.
All right. Well, what inspired you to write this book? Let's hear a little bit of the Andrew story of how we got here.
I think that's the interesting part. The story emanated from an autobiography that was essentially my attempt at self-therapy after my wife passed in 2016, January of 2016. I was beside myself with, I think, layers of issues, predominantly anxiety, PTSD from past deployments, but now all of a sudden a thick helping of grief. And the autobiography was just simply me putting my life out in text in an attempt to try to self-medicate. A friend convinced me to have it published, which I was against at first because she thought it would help others in the same situation as me, and that rang true. When my organization sent the proof back so redacted that some words or some pages only had 13 words on them, that's when I had to switch gears. And another good friend was the one that told me to just write fiction, just change some things, which was nice because it gave me a lot more latitude in telling the story. So,
right.
Yeah.
Wow. So you basically have written two books then. So you've written one, you couldn't use it. It inspired the fiction one. So now we're here.
Yes.
That's an interesting process because that's something that those of us who haven't written a book or even attempted to write our thoughts on paper would even consider,
Correct. Almost like just pushing it over from a journal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you have three kiddos, and you said your wife passed away. Do you mind sharing with us what that was like, or what that journey was like, or that's something that a lot of people I think need to hear, and they need to hear how you felt and how you overcame that, because there's a lot of widows out there who think their lives have ended and that there's no way to pick up the pieces.
And grief in all different aspects, right?
Right.
It's inspiring.
Yeah, I did too. I thought my life ended too. In my book, A Failed State, the main character is actually an amalgamation of three of us, myself and two other teammates, that all had big marital and family issues. And a lot of that's stemmed from the long deployments and the constantly being away from home and the lack of communication. My wife was an amazing woman. Despite that, she had problems with depression and alcoholism. And those were amplified, obviously through the distance and
Right.
the stilted communication when there was communication. So that in and of itself was a problem that I didn't really engage in too much and let fester because of the fact that I was away for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of spiraled as things dragged on. I mean, 7 years, almost 21 intermittent deployments.
Wow. That's incredible amount of time away.
Yeah.
It just seemed to get worse and worse. And I just didn't see, the forest through the trees there. So.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something that our audience can relate to in the sense that, we go through, a lot of our audience are military spouses and walk through those deployments, myself included. And it's easy to miss things when you're not together all the time.
Well, and the communication is hard, right? Because I know that like spouses don't want to burden someone who's, downrange with what's going on at home. So you end up kind of internalizing and keeping everything in. And then that communication, which is so important to a marriage whenever things are going right, it's even stifled even more. And I think that, it's important to talk about why communication is so important and having honest conversation in a safe way. That's, I know you're dealing with this and I know I'm downrange, but we need to talk.
Yeah.
No, it is absolutely. You don't have your finger on the pulse of what's going on at home. And you're committed obviously to the cause, to fighting for your country, to prostrating yourself for your country. And that takes its toll. I mean, it's got a price tag and a lot of people don't see it sometimes like me until it's much too late.
How would you say that writing this book and going through that journey has helped you deal with those, with the anxiety, grief?
Oh, massively. I think I credit it for half of my recovery. Just getting it out in front of me in print to look over and think about and reflect on. The nice thing about this book, It Failed State, is that, like I said, other teammates had big problems. I mean, granted, their wives are still in this world, they're still alive, but they had, there was infidelity involved. There was difficulties with custody, divorces, separations. I mean, and these things weren't all the fault of just the women. I mean, let's face it. I mean, my wife, as flawed as she was an amazing woman. And the reason my house is so clean, the reason the laundry's done every week, the reason the kids are fed is because I modeled my life after my wife. I could have never done those things had I been a single dad after a couple of years of marriage. She is the reason that I'm able to even do half of what a mother can do in the household. So,
she taught you well.
You learned she did, and I was an unwilling pupil for a long time. So, but it makes sense now. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Right. She set a good example.
So what was your desire with the book? As when you agreed to publish it, and this failed state, especially, even though originally you were against publishing, what is your goal with? Yeah.
What do you hope comes out of this?
Well, I think first and foremost, I wanted to make the main character, whose name in the book is Damian Collins. I wanted to make him real, flawed, legitimate, a guy that just is trying to balance everything the way a lot of deployed military do. They try to juggle so many things and keep things in perspective, and it's brutal. And I wanted the reader to understand that this guy means well. It just doesn't always end well. for the main character. And I wanted to portray the characters in this book and other guys on the team as having women in their lives that are also flawed, but that also put their best foot forward. I know the secondary character, Tyson, his call sign is Loki, and that's a whole another story. His wife, they live in, since again, inspired by a real teammate. They live off grid. So his wife spends most of the year, I'd say he's deployed 8 months out of the year, fixing well pumps and feeding livestock, and fixing iced over solar panels, and just one of the strongest women that I could have ever written about, based on a true to life person.
True woman.
Yeah, and I probably didn't do it enough justice, but that's what I want to get out of people to get out of reading this, is that the characters are based on real people and they're amazing individuals despite their shortcomings.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and that's very in line with our message about honest conversations. You know, you can be honest, and you don't have to be perfect at everything. So
no, and I think that what makes us all stronger is acknowledging our flaws and what we can do to help each other overcome them, and acknowledging what we're good at and what we're not, and being willing to say, like, I need help, or have the conversation of, we need to hire someone to help us, or I can manage it all, because so often women just hide behind this. I can keep all the balls in the air because that's my job. And then we get depressed and we self-medicate, and our marriage and communication falls apart. And it's because we have taken on so much and we're not comfortable saying, that's enough. I can't take anymore. So
I think that's back for you too, Andrew, as a single dad, we have to all realize as parents, because we put our kids are our everything, but sometimes we have to remember that we can't do it all, and we don't have to be it all for everyone.
Yeah, I have a hard problem with that as well. I mean, I like my wife I have a hard time asking for help. I try to do it all, and then like Crystal said, I have those moments of breakdown, and where I just feel like I can't juggle all these balls in the air at the same time. So absolutely.
And I think that what's interesting about having a conversation with you and having some honest dad talk, if you will, is that we expect moms to feel this way, right? Like, we expect moms to feel overwhelmed. We expect them to just keep it all in and to go talk to their girlfriends about it. But I really, truly believe that men feel the same way, and especially in your shoes of, you don't have a partner at home right now to help you. Who do you turn to? I mean, where do you go? I think writing is obviously your therapy, but there isn't, I would say, a network of people, probably your former teammates, or who you look to bond and talk to, so that you don't keep it all in. Because
yeah, that's rare though. I think conventions and get-togethers like SHOT Show in Las Vegas, and it used to be training iterations we had. I mean, that was the time I would take to bond with some of the guys that are like me and some of the guys that do what I do. But, I'm in a space now where I have a new mission, and that was the theme with Mike Schindler's podcast, The Military Wire, was that my new mission is no longer, running roads in Afghanistan or some other third world country. It's raising my children, trying to provide for them, and just remaining sane, like a lot of mothers do. I've never had so much empathy for mothers until I was put in this situation alone and had to navigate my way without family or extended family in the area, and without a support network. It was brutal, but I kept a regimen, just like I did when I was deployed. I got up, I got the kids ready for school. I went to the gym. I went to the office. I met with folks like myself to find some common ground if I could for lunch. And I pick my kids up from school and attend sporting events and just spend time with them at night. I mean, that was just my life for a solid year after my wife passed. And I just thought about all the single mothers out there that a lot of people take for granted. I was blown away at how many do it all on their own and have so much respect for what they deal with day in and day out.
And I think that it goes back to this, if you're doing it all alone and you don't have a support network, self-care is one of the first things that goes, like whether you're male or female. You said you go to the gym, amazing. I think a lot of women would put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
Just in general, anything that has to do with self-care, because you're just trying to maintain. But then if you're not doing your self-care, you're going to burn out, and your mental health is going to kind of diminish and suffer. And so that's an important part of honest talk and honest dad talk and honest mom talk and all of this, is that you have to have those real conversations of, I need help and I need self-care. And we have to stop feeling guilty for putting ourselves first just for a little bit.
And I think that goes back to men and women, because I know, like, my husband, he felt much like yourself, guilty that he was away so much. So when he was home, he couldn't take the time for self-care, because then that's taking time away from the family. Or, so you I think both sides of the party battle with, I have to be all in wherever I'm at and forget about me. Just, pour into everything else, whether it's the mission, the family, or what. But when we do have an outlet for ourselves, then we actually are healthier for everyone involved. So.
Yep.
So what's next for you? You've got this book, and what's next?
Well, I think the promotion part is what's staring me down in a dark alley right now. Luckily, I've got some good friends, right, and contacts, and they're helping. Obviously, SHOT Show, which is the largest domestic military convention, military, police, law enforcement, et cetera, convention in the U.S. is in January. So that'll provide a really good chance to touch base with like-minded folks, talk about the book, hopefully do some signings. It's that promotional juggernaut that I've just got to spin
pound
up.
The pavement.
And again, not my wheelhouse. I can write a novel in, I did this one in a season.
Wow.
And it's all the editing and the marketing and the promotional stuff that just seems like takes forever and takes more effort.
Yeah.
So that's next.
Got you covered. Well,
we've got it covered. So we see you speaking on many stages, sharing this story, because it's one that needs to get out there. And the book is a way for it. But you being on stage, sharing this message with military members and spouses and things you've learned that you wish you could go back and do differently, it's how you can impact those that are living what you lived for 7 or 8 years.
Right.
Yeah, I know my story isn't the most unique story out there. I know there's a lot of folks that have, much greater ones and probably don't talk about it or probably don't address it. And that's I feel my calling is to talk about mine and hopefully bring others' stories to light and reveal their strengths and reveal the hope that they need to have in some of the worst situations they faced.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I haven't even touched on, the situation with my wife's passing very much, or what happened downrange, although the book details a little bit about that. It was a big climb out of the bottom for me. And I'd love to share that in a greater capacity for sure.
Yeah.
I think this is the beginning of something really big where you can really touch a lot of people, because, we all think our story's not unique enough or it's not this or that enough. But the truth is, whatever our story is impacts someone else, because there's someone else living with a portion of what we've had to go through or overcome. And like you said, dig yourself out of that. I mean, you're a strong person for what you were doing downrange, but tapping into some inner strength that you probably didn't know you had to move through this emotional tragedy that you experienced is a different sort of strength you have to channel than just the, grit of getting the mission done. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a failed state really talks about half and half. I think it talks about, the thrill, if you would, of deployments and the manageable stress that so many soldiers just embrace, which is combat or the underlying threat of being in enemy territory. But the other half of the book is the personal stuff. It's the stuff that is real, that, like I said, it's a price tag for a lot of this, a lot of these lifestyles. It's just what makes people real, and what makes a character like the one in a failed state real. So the book, the book's just the start. I'd like to do that more. I'd like to bring out the character flaws and the realness, if you would, of these folks that are in this first book and the second one. So
yeah, I think the more we can have a conversation, an honest conversation, the more people will stop feeling like there's a stigma behind depression and anxiety, PTSD. That if we can be open and honest about it, that real people go through this and how they overcome it, then we can make you, and together we can make a bigger impact in the world.
I hope so.
One of our audience members said, "Thank you for sharing your story. Many times this is the most powerful aspect of healing for people. When they look at someone like you and see that you've made it through, you're still making it through in many ways, and they realize there's hope." So
that's amazing. Yeah, it's a process though. It's a day to day, and sometimes that's all it is. It's literally an hour to hour, a day to day. I always thought that cliche for Alcoholics Anonymous, one day at a time. I thought that was such a cliche, but man, I lived it.
Yeah.
And some people do. It's like, when are things going to get better? What, is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be 5 years from now? And you just got to put that one foot in front of the other.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Michaela always says, that if you're running a race, you can't think about how many miles you have ahead. You just need to think about the next 5 minutes. If you can get through that, then you tackle the rest.
Well, exactly. When I ran, I've only done half marathons. I haven't done a full. I have no desire to put myself through that. But one person, instead of, I have 10 more miles to run, I have one person to run to. And then that person's behind me. And then it's the next person, the next marker. So I think that that's something that we can use, that mentality, in so many different aspects of our life.
I agree.
Well, so we have some exciting news about your book. I think we have a winner for someone who, I put everybody's names in who shared about this. So, and I just drew one out, and Katie Scenery, you won a signed copy of A Failed State. So I will get with Katie, and then we'll figure out how to get this book to her somehow. But yay! So, well, we have exciting things. We know that we're, happy to have you as part of our network, because we have so many people who are in the military, and you're a great resource for us to reach out to so that we can connect you guys. And we definitely see you speaking on our stage in Vegas next year, and hopefully, that all works out. And we're really glad that you decided to hop on with us. I know Honest First Talk was probably not at the top of your list of interviews, but it does. Honest conversation is important, and our audience definitely connects with you. So
I appreciate it. I'm honored. Indeed. Absolutely. Thank you
so much.
All right. Bye, guys.